Well, good morning, folks. It's the 18th of March. The generator's fired up. Hear that? See the exhaust? Every now and then, they check the generators, buildings all around town. This is a big building. Let's make sure that everything's flowing righteously. I'll shut that off in a minute. Sunrise here. Should be a decent one. We actually have snow coming a little later this week. It's in the lower 40s out. Oh yes, it should be a decent little sunrise this morning. Get everything set back the way it should be. Well, I listened to a certain scanning site where they have a scanner set up, and there are those that monitor it 24 hours a day and then post word for word the police and fire calls as they come in, and it's very interesting. Well, last night, you see the Hinman skyrise just up the street, about right there on on Burdick Street. Is a watering hole, well known in the area. It's a classy place. It's a good place. Of course, it was St. Patty's Day, and it was later in the evening, and there were residents that live around there that were calling in that there is a large fight out in the street, and the police department was receiving multiple calls and so forth. And as it progressed, as you read the scanning responses coming back and so forth, and somebody wrote in there that the place was it was packed, and somebody said something bad about the wearing of the green. Said shortly thereafter they didn't like the way they were pinched, and that's all she wrote. I hate to laugh. I didn't see if there was any injuries. If that is really what happened in there, it's the first time in an awful long time I've heard of a St. Patty's Day Donnybrook here in the valley. Now, I don't keep my ear to that stone, or ear to that rail, I should say. Yeah, my ear's to the stone, all right. But I'm not going to say it hasn't happened since the first one I heard about, that my uncle came back and told us about, that happened on Portage Street, just about over here. And he'd been down to the Ideal beer store and was on his way back. There was a bar there, and it was St. Patrick's Day, and the men from the mill and from Eckridge and everything is stopping in there on their way home after shift and having a few of those green soda pops with the foams on tops. And place was overpacked. There was some workers from the train yard. There was a couple of trains that was in there from out of town, walking distance away over just the east side there. And there were several that came over and tried to wedge their way in, and some pushing and shoving started, and those guys from the train yard decided, well, we'll just pull a bunch of these guys out of here and throw them out in the street. And so they commenced to trying to do that, and more men came in from here and there, and it turned into a big one out in the street. There were cars that had stopped. Men were getting out of cars and starting to swing. My uncle was carrying beverages in his arms back to his home, and he just maneuvered, he said, up Vine Street and got out of there. But in the distance, he came over and told my dad, and I was in the yard when he was telling my dad. And my dad was just shaking his head, and he says, that's what we can hear, and off in the distance you could hear sirens. The police were going over there to break up the St. Patty's Day Donnybrook near the Ideal Beer Store. I don't know the name of the bar over there at the time, but it was right on Portage, near Portage and Vine. So, God bless them one and all. Next time you need to use the Shillelagh on them. That'll get them the first time. I hope they don't use shillelaghs, please. If you're gonna, just a little pushing and shoving, or don't be doing that at all there. But anyway, up here watching this nice sunrise, I want to take this opportunity to also thank each and every one of my subscribers. I appreciate it. The weather's getting warmer. I have some different trips coming up here shortly. Just a couple of weeks, we're gonna head over and take a look at Muhammad Ali's home down in where he and his family lived, in a little area along the Old St. Joe in Berrien Springs, Michigan. It's going to be a cool little trip. A friend of mine took a boat. He and I, couple extra 6-gallon tanks of fuel, and we went all the way from St. Joseph, Michigan to the dam in Berrien Springs on that river. And it was a little high water. There were some areas the water had flooded right out into cornfields where just the tops of the corn were visible above the water. And so we pulled the boat right out there and sat in a cornfield and fished. Yep. Really something. All right. Well, here comes the good old sunrise. You have a great day yourselves. And we'll get this one going here. Have a lot to do at home. I have a sandbox to build. Old grandson's just 13 months old, and he's walking all over the place. And he's in the yard the other day just loving it. Of course, the temperatures were nearly 74 degrees out, and he's just loving it. First day in the yard. There are going to be many more of those. We sure hope the Lord blesses us with. See you in the next one. Thanks again for watching.